RPL F2's first race in Canada in 10 seasons is finally here. Our first time in almost 3 years of racing at this circuit is finally back. The weekend of round 3, season 20, also the weekend of the 400th F2 race. Last week we were in Portugal, where Josh had trouble. Metal championship leader had trouble in the sprint race. Josh ended up being P2 in the feature race, but only to lose to Skither, who won both the sprint race and the feature race, sweeping the weekend. I'm your commentator for this event, Ryan Searles, and I believe I was supposed to have RPL Titan Iron joining me, and he might still be joining me, but I am not 100% sure on if that will be happening. Welcome along to the stream, folks. I will be pulling up the Twitch chat in just a moment to see your comments and who you guys have for predictions for tonight's event, but I just want to mention our Tier 3 and Tier 2 winner first from the weekend. Tier 3, the race was shortened. Uri ended up picking his first career win up in RPL, beating Lennon, the championship leader, who has now been kicked out of Tier 3 due to being too fast. But that's okay, because he's now in Tier 2 full-time. And I think that's the right place for him to be. He showed a lot of great promise in the race last night at Zandvoort, a race that had so many switches and flips and changes and whatever you want to call it. There was so much that happened last night in Zandvoort in Tier 2. That race shook up very heavily, to say the least. But with that being said, we probably should mention who won the race. Blonde. Blonde won the race after spinning out at one point and coming back through to the victory. Odds on Jack winning, SV says. Well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Interesting thought, SV. We'll think about that in a bit. But either way, Blonde won the race after spinning out and being on the wrong strategy. Jackson Traeger had a chance the other Red Bull. Blue Goggy led, was in the top 3 for a bit. Excuse me. It was Cryptic who led the other V-Carb for a bit. Lennon led for a bit. It was a crazy race, to say the least. And no doubt in Canada we might get a crazy race here in a little while time. Our standings, Josh leads by 20 points over Skither. Neither of them here in this event tonight. I believe we have some joining in, but this is not good. Metal is joining in. Metal got demoted down to 4th in the championship after being pointless last week in Portugal. Tadpole 3rd in the championship. Tadpole is here. Jack Miles missed last week but made the first run and had podiums in both, and he is here, 6th in the championship. I guess Tadpole has a qualifying ban, he is saying. And we are readying up. We are readying up for the event. And with that being said, let's remind you ahead of tonight's one-shot qualifying session, which is coming up right now, that, Jack and Tadpole have qualifying bans because Kipu did not do the lineup. That is why. Alright then. So that will be big for our championship contenders from last season and into this season. And J&T as well does? Oh my word. We have a lot of qualifying bans. So I will tell you this. This will be very interesting then for the rest of the race and the way the feature and sprint play out. And in fact, the chance of rain, I was just going to mention that too. We have the chance of track limit penalties, but the chance of rain in Canada is massive. There you go. It is raining here for qualifying. We're going to find out from the drivers if it's raining for the race, but that would be absolutely crazy. It is supposed to be dry and cloudy for the sprint race. Alright, Invade, show us what the feature race looks like. It's showing rain on there, but it does say dry and cloudy on the top. And the feature race is heavy rain causing wet track conditions. That might be monsoon. Goggy saying, what is this weather? I would have to agree. Goggy was one of the drivers, by the way, in Portugal who missed last week's event. Jack missed last week's event. We had a lot of drivers who actually missed last week's event. But also, those who made it, a lot of them missed the points finishing spots. So with Jack, Tadpole, and Jackson Traeger, also known as J&T, having qualifying bans, this is going to make everything very interesting. They don't get to qualify. SV, by the way, in this PHM, he does, though. And he got his first points last week in this car. So, we might get a first-time pole sitter tonight, if that is being the case. And someone I'm looking at is RSF1 Invade. It was this track in Tier 2. He had his only points finish of Season 10 or 11 it was. I want to say it was 11. It was only Season 11 when he was in, I believe, the Aston, a car that should have been scoring points. His only points finish. Jack Miles here, doing laps, but will disqualify himself, I'd have to assume. And I'm sure there's guys who've already validated track limits will be a big thing, but right now, the driver who is on debut, I believe, Night Owl, if I'm correct about that, he is currently leading the way. This is absolutely crazy. These conditions are crazy for one, and for two, this is just wild. The amount of people you got, little cat, or well, Lit. I'm gonna call him because that is a weird way to pronounce his name. Retiring from the session, Tadpole's out, so this is gonna be very interesting for our sprint race poll. Invade is 4/10 down. Night Owl in the Prema on debut is gonna cross the line, and on debut takes his first pole position. Welcome to RPL, and welcome to RPL by a monstrous gap. Invade second, Blue Goggy third, Invade's teammate Wavy's fourth, SV is fifth. Very big results from a lot of those guys. This is exactly what was gonna happen with guys like Jack and Tadpole having qualifying bans. You were gonna get some surprises, and you sure did. And look at that. True Streamer Boy. DQ. Track limits probably. Jackson Traeger, Jack Miles, Tadpole, all qualifying bans. But the front row is going to be guys who had qualifying bans. Head of the sprint, that will be Jack Miles in the Invicta alongside Jackson Traeger for the sprint race. This is going to be chaotic. George Up Williams as well going to be up there in the fourth grid slot. So our top five from qualifying. Night Owl on debut for Prema. Invade, Goggy, Wavy, and SV. Show that top five to somebody who, you know, would have been here 3 seasons ago or 4 seasons ago. They would have not expected that. So we had a little late start to the stream, by the way, folks. And I want to remind people as Valkyrie joins in, Shut Metal joins in. I want to remind people that it is a dry sprint race, by the way, but it's a wet feature race for those of you wanting to tune in later. I just wanted to say, keep in mind our F2 team principals, Young team principals. I did not recap this too much last week, but we have SV, Young Merc Academy, Kipu, Young Alpine Academy, Goggy, Young Ferrari Academy, Faded, Young McLaren Academy, and J&T, Jackson Traeger, the Young Red Bull Academy. Kipu didn't do his lineups. He's the Young Alpine Academy principal, and because of that is why Jack, Tadpole, and maybe a few others had to serve some qualifying bans, which is not ideal. Give us your predictions for the start. Here we go. 5 red lights to RPL's return in Canada. In 10 seasons, for the first time since then, we're lights out and go, go, go. Jack Miles off the line, gets a great start over Jackson Traeger. Behind that, George Up Williams gets Eric off the line quite well. Now Wavy has him for company, and off in a wide goes Jackson Traeger. He may have had a wheel issue because he's ghosted and not going into the wall. He goes. Luckily, he doesn't have damage. Metal. He was late to the session. He's not in his correct constructor, but he is down in 12th, only gaining 2 spots. RSF1 Invade. He's having to avoid some cars at the back of the field. Same with Blue Goggy, True Streamer Boy. Some of them gaining spots, some of them losing spots. So already a treacherous start for some, but it is Jack Miles in front. Obviously, we know they're going to be on the soft compound tire. No surprise there. Metal and Invade side by side, 2 good mates here. Blue Goggy and True Streamer Boy side by side here. It is all kicking off on lap number 1. We go to the hairpin. Oh, collision! Tadpole ran into Night Owl. He got the boot. He went around, and Night Owl trying to get back going. Sees in his rear view mirror Jackson Traeger spinning. 1.3 seconds, Jack Miles leads this race. And the last time we were here in Canada, in what I believe was the sprint race, well, it was the first race back then, it was the feature race, excuse me, we had, as Jack Miles takes the fastest lap, obviously leading lap 1, 6 places for Tadpole, the most, 5 for True Streamer Boy, the next highest gainer. I want to mention about the last time we were here in Canada, 10 seasons ago, season 10, it was, I believe, Egg who won the championship that season, battling Owen. Either it was Egg or Beatnik, one of the two won the championship that season. It was either 9 or 10 that ended up happening, and mistake from George. Eric can capitalize. It was that season that it was the feature race that was first, where there was crazy stuff happening on the final lap. We'll get to that later, because right now we have a battle for P2 on lap 2. Eric got in front, then George re-overtook him. And this train is full of multiple hungry drivers who may have never had a podium, may have had a podium before in the past, or maybe looking for some big points. Tadpole's the one looking for big points. Wavy's looking for a first podium in a season. And SV has never had one. Down the inside, Eric's gonna go. Dive bomb sentry right there here in the hairpin. You had one in the background from Tadpole on SV and Wavy. Debut on True Streamer Boy. So the gap between the lead has now gone to 3 seconds. This circuit, by the way, back in Season 3, provided the largest margin of victory. If we keep having battling here, because it's happening all over, behind Eric, we may get that again. And it's only a 14-lap event. 5 cars under a blanket here. Night Owl and Metal trade spots. So now, our biggest gainer is Tadpole. 7 places, maybe looking for 8. George, re-overtaking Eric once again. Outside, then the inside for the next corner. Contact between SV and Tadpole. Tadpole's now ghosted, and that got SV a track limit penalty. That's her first. And Tadpole is still inside of Eric right here. This is not good from Tadpole. And obviously, he is now outside of him and no longer inside of him. I believe there is damage on the end plate of SV. It is the right side end plate. He will have to nurse this thing home and hope for as much as he can. But he's looking like he's dealing with it quite well, to say the least. Still keeping Tadpole and Eric for company. Throw him back. Blugagi, brand new race winner in RPL F2 last season. He is in this battle with Invade, Night Owl, Metal, up in front, Debut, and True Streamer Boy. All drivers here in this train moving around. Night Owl gets the place. Tadpole and SV up in front of that. A little bit of contact we can see. Tadpole once again ghosting. Eric, George, SV, 3 cars under a blanket. There's still more banging down the back straight. 4.6 now the gap Jack has. This is incredible. 3 wide. Now, a little bit of squeezing. That got RG Bargy, elbows out. George has been boxed in and overtaken by 2, but definitely not without contact. Jack is still going fast because he leads lap number 3. 4.7 the gap. 0.1 with SV down the inside. Little ballsy, but he backed out of it. So now Tadpole's got George for company. How does he make amends of him? George inside, maybe outside, tagging the rear of SV, and SV into the wall right there. And was he still going? Is he still going? Now he's got more damage. Debut with a penalty. So now it's both M plates on that PHM that has damage. PHM, first points for them of the season last week. First points in F2 for SV last week. And we got more banging. Debut and the Prema. Here comes Blugagi, who has damage, by the way, trying to take advantage. Almost 3 wide, 3 abreast here into this corner. It's going to be 3 abreast, and there's going to be a collision. Gagi getting boxed. Debut getting boxed. 2 by 2 there for a moment. It's all kicking off on lap 4. Now we go to the hairpin. And I don't think it's done. Debut shot down the inside. Hit the Prema once again. George is now battling Tadpole. DRS enabled. George trying to outbrake him. Last of the late breakers. Gets the move done. Did he pick up a track limit warning, though? SV did. He got a penalty. George slid. Now, George has the other Red Bull livery car of Wavy. Maybe push him along down the straight for just a moment. Now, outside, inside for turn 2 again. It happens for George. Tadpole, long way around. Gets squeezed. Will he hold on now as we go to another chicane? And we have more penalties being handed out. George! Late braking once again, but he locks the rears. That's the trouble with these cars. You cannot brake so late, and you will have that happen, and it's happened to him. Gagi, a penalty there. Down the inside, Wavy and SV racing it out, and Tadpole becomes our 5th different driver to pick up a penalty. We almost have half the field penalized, and we have a spin. Blugagi has hit trouble. His race has went from bad to worse. He already had the damage. Now, his woes continue. Faded, I'm thinking the same thing from this whole race so far. And by the way, if you're not aware, I believe, if I'm correct, these are the F2 2024 cars. So we have got them in hand. if I'm correct about that. But right now, Wavy loses the rear there at the hairpin, and he might be eaten alive here from True Streamer Boy. True Streamer Boy, I've not seen him this high up quite a bit, and he's actually having a great day, especially from guys like Metal who didn't get to qualify. Even, obviously, this being a reverse grid, he's taken full advantage, but he tried to outbrake Wavy, and that could have gone absolutely diabolical. Lucky enough it didn't. Debut overtaken by Night Owl there at the Wall of Champion chicane. Now, Invade and Metal are fighting to get the last point spot. 3 abreast. A little bit of contact to turn 1. Now to turn 2. The Red Bull livery cars are really squeezed away from overtaking Debut, and we have some overtakes now. Side by side, George F. Williams, he's been compromised. He's got a penalty from that. He tried getting ahead of Tadpole, and now add Invade to the penalty list. That's half the drivers now. And Tadpole does have damage. So these drivers limping it home with the damage, but Eric right now is in second, trying to chase down Jack. Look at the beautiful helicopter cam. We got SV shining a move down the inside of Tadpole. He reeled him in, even with the damage on both end plates compared to one end plate, and it still has not happened. The move right there that we were looking forward to. Now it will into the hairpin. Heavy braking, and he went out wide and almost hit George, and that was actually a smart move from SV to go darting out, braking even later, not to hit either one of them, because he would have hit Tadpole, and that could have been catastrophic. So now that promotes Tadpole and Wavy to another place. See the positions gain? We're going to take you off that. We're going to take you to our tires, make you aware of that if you're not aware. 5 laps on these soft tires. Will be 14 by the end of this race. And we got an incident. True Streamer Boy, I was talking good about him running well. Now he's outside the points. Down, plummeting. Now 11th. This fight between Tadpole and George is getting tasty. 3rd and 4th. Both have penalties. Wavy Knife would be on the podium right now. And remember, Tadpole does have damage. Wavy Knife lags out. We were just talking about the potential of him being on the podium again. He will need an invite back. Oh, Wavy. We've given him an invite, but that is super unfortunate for Wavy Knife. Now, Night Owl, who starts on the feature race pole position, feature race first spot, he is now chasing SV and may actually be in position to get this podium on penalties if everything works out. SV goes through the ghost of car Wavy as he tries to join back. Looks like he's trying to. I just want to check something here just to make sure I was correct. This is F223 instead of F224. My bad. I think the F224 is coming soon. Whether that be RPL or just the game, I'm unsure, but I've heard a lot about it. Tadpole going through and ahead of George Up Williams. His George and Wavy's cars look so similar. Couldn't help it. At past halfway, we got 4.4 the gap between Jack and Eric, and SLR Metal has taken over the fastest lap in the MP. He's now pressurizing the Prema of Night Owl, and Night Owl goes deep, wide, and that's place conceded. Metal's up to 7th. Night Owl now in the last points position. I wonder if True Streamer Boy does have any damage and can claw his way back up and try to get to a point spot, at least on penalties. Remember, the top 8 get points in this sprint race, so we will be watching out for that. Tadpole did have a little mishap there coming out of the chicane. George Up Williams will be right all over his tail. So I talked about this at the very start of the sprint race, and I want to remind people. So the first race back on F1 21, this was back in Season 10, as Metal gets Wavy, Night Owl gets Wavy, Wavy just joined back. I want to remind people, it was the feature race back then that was first before the sprint race. And what happened on the final lap of that race was Owen, also known as AK-37 at the time, was in position to win on track limit penalties. What happened at the final chicane? He lost the rear and threw the race away. It ended up going to Division, the victory. Would have been Owen on penalties. Speaking of penalties, 2 guys with penalties trading spots down the back straight. George ahead of Tadpole now. SLR Metal picks up, I think, another penalty. Wavy Knife has joined back, but the yellow flags are out for Jackson Traeger, who's just had an absolute bad day. The qualifying ban first, being back here in last, and now spinning again. But yeah, just remember that. That happened to Owen. Keep in mind, Jack Miles, 3.9, 3.8 right here. He's not comfortable at all. Yes, he's in the lead by a lot. Wavy Knife into the gravel. Or into the grass, excuse me. There's not much gravel around here, if there any at all. But yeah, he was the cause of yellow flags. He now is damaged. Unfortunate for Wavy. That could have been a podium today. But he still has a feature race, luckily. And yeah, with that being said, Owen throwing the race away like that 10 seasons ago in this race. In the first race, which, like I said, back then was the feature race, George locks the rears. That will be something to watch out for on this final lap when we get to that in a few laps' time. Wavy Knife, 3-second time penalty. He has been handed a penalty by the stewards for track limits, and we have a car being lapped. That is Jackson Traeger. Cause the yellow flags. Tadpole overtakes George, but that was not in the section yellow flags were in. However, Tadpole still paid the price regardless because he has got a second track limit encounter. He's on 6 seconds, so we're going to trade you guys to the penalties now instead of the tires. The second promo with a penalty. 6 seconds to his name now. Wavy Knife, 10-second penalty. He's going to be out of this race, I think. And he is. We have lost Wavy Knife, and that is so unfortunate. Especially from Wavy's point of view after what he was looking for a podium from. Now, he will be in the paddock area until the feature race. Blue Goggy, 3-second penalty. That is his second. And Wavy Knife is talking about his internet. That is what has hampered him. 3.9 the gap with Jack and Eric. Eric has not been here long in RPL F2, but he has not had a podium to his name. And that would be a great story to see him on the podium in Canada. Not sure how many podium sitters we've had in RPL F2, but if somehow Jack were to throw this race away, just keep in mind, Eric would win this, and he would become maybe the 78th, 79th different F2 winner. George now hits the 6-second penalty club. Yellow flags in the main straight. That is for Jackson Traeger. He is getting out of the way of our leaders, and he has spun around at turn 2 and is trying to get back going, and is just having a nightmare race. A day removed from the race that he could have won yesterday in Zandvoort, now having a race very similar in terms of the amount of spins he's had. True Streamer Boy. Outside the points, we were talking about Wavy earlier, and now I want to talk about True Streamer Boy, because he was in the points, and I think he was looking for his best finish. That's not going to happen now. George is struggling on the rears, and this is what we got to watch out for. We've seen races like Qatar and other races in RPL F2, even Britain last season, where we have had drivers pick up punctures. Don't think we're going to see it, but if George is struggling so badly, this may be a concern. Jackson Traeger moving out of the way. He has a lap down and not going to fight with any of these guys, which is a great thing to see. 4.6 the gap between Jack Miles and Eric. Jack Miles, F2 champion last season. And for him, he has 22 wins to his name. He is trying to tie today, 2-time champion, Bourbon Boy. And for Jack Miles' case, not raced in Canada a lot. This is one of the tracks Jack Miles is trying to cross off that list in RPL F2, if I'm correct. Oh, George again. George again clips the barrier, and George is going to lose another place due to the rear locking and the struggling on the tires. George down on his time by 9/10 in the first sector. That's how much he struggled this time. So yeah, Jack has never won in Canada, but this would be the first if he were to do it tonight. Well, Canada for F2 to specify. I don't know about Tier 2. I could check that if anyone's interested. But yellow flags. That is True Streamer Boy. SV down at the hairpin, racing it out with Night Owl. One is a penalty, one has 6 seconds of penalties. There's 6 guys with 6 seconds of penalties in this event. Night Owl breezing past SV down the back straight, and right now Night Owl might even be on for a podium. Might. He could be. in his debut. George Up Williams racing it out with Essilor Metal. He is pinching Essilor Metal toward the grass. Blue Goggy, our first to hit 9 seconds of penalties here in this event. And penultimate lap underway, Jack Miles looking for a 23rd victory in RPL F2. Last week, Skither ended up winning in 10 consecutive seasons in RPL F2. If Jack Miles wins tonight, or not 10 consecutive seasons, 10 different seasons, excuse me. If Jack Miles wins tonight, he'll win in a 9th different season. That will be second most of anybody in RPL F2. Night Owl, that's his first track limit penalty. This could be big for this race because he may not have that gap with Tadpole. George and Metal are still racing it out here. Both Red Bull livery cars. We got yellow flags further on back. That is Debure. He may have had a chance at points, but I highly doubt it. Now it's definitely over. And Jackson Traeger into the wall again, we just saw moments ago. 1 lap to go this time for Jack Miles, and we mentioned again we can't forget it because it was one of the worst choke jobs in RPL history. 10 seasons ago, the last we ran here, Owen in the feature race, which was the first race back then, lost the victory in the final corner. Now, if Jack Miles were to lose it in the final corner, he may have a chance to still keep it on penalties because Eric, second place man, looking for a first podium, just picked up a 3-second time penalty. Excellent Metal gets George. Now Night Owl's trying to do the same, and he does. George is seriously struggling now. If he wasn't already before. Night Owl losing it on the curb. All the drivers here struggling with traction, struggling with grip. George almost ran in the back of Night Owl. This is where George and SV collided earlier. I'm sure that'll see the stewards. But down the inside, will George brake later? No, he just taps the rear, taps it again, goes off. Now, he's vulnerable to SV again, who he collided with earlier. Does SV go for the shot here? 6 seconds of penalties, both of them even. Down the inside, SV goes, cuts right in front of George, and just stomps on the brakes. He's led from lights to flag. Jack Miles had a qualifying ban, but he says, that doesn't matter to me. 23rd time on the top step of the podium. Jack Miles is now 3rd on the all-time win list. He wins the sprint race here in Canada in RPL's return here in F2. Eric, a first podium. He is 2nd. Congrats to him. Welcome to the Podium Sitter Club in RPL. And Tadpole does hang on. A much-needed points day from him. A 2nd week in a row, he's on the RPL F2 podium. Night Owl on debut, he's 4th. Metal, he didn't even get to qualify at all. He's not even the correct car. 5th place for him. SV, George, and Invade is our final points runner from the event. Jack Miles, for a 23rd time, stands on the top step, and his team stands up there for a 29th time. Virtuosi, Invicto, whatever you want to call him, 1-3. That is big out of the feature race, which is a wet event. Invade not happy with Blue Goggy and Daniel, which is also known as Debure. But Invade finished ahead of them. True Streamer Boy finishes in fashion in the Arthur Leclerc Dams. A race that could have gone his way, but it didn't. And Wavy Knife saying exactly what I thought. Should have been a podium. Driver of the day from the game goes to Metal. That's not a bad shout. You know who else is not a bad shout? Eric. But I'm going to give it to Jack Miles. Jack Miles put on a well performance there at the front of the field, and he deserves the credit here. 23rd RPL F2 victory from Mr. Miles. Welsh Wizard giving us some fist bumps right there. Here are your points scored so far from the qualifying and the sprint race so far. We have Night Owl up there, Eric up there, Jack Miles the most so far. And this championship hunt, we can say it's on from Jack Miles to win back-to-back titles and a 3rd. Josh isn't here. He leads the championship by 20 points for those of you not aware, but Skither's not here either. He's 2nd in the championship. Jack Miles was 6th, But he beat rivals Tadpole. He beat Metal. That's what's important. And he's got to replicate that for the feature race. Good shout with Tadpole as well, honestly. Coming through the field like that. Night Owl too. Here are your full results from the event. Look at everybody except for Jack Miles finished with a penalty. He's familiar with doing that, but that's to no surprise. Time for a monsoon wet feature race, and it was Kipu's Academy there, doing the best there, 1-3. But even then, they both had qualifying bans. And I'm going to assume it's full wet tires, and it surely is. Valkyrie gets put in the MP. And she's wondering what happens with the new cars, because we will get them by next week. So it'll be interesting to see if we do continue racing with the F2 23 cars, or we go over to the 24. Yeah, I can do that. I can do that, Johnny. Wet, Goatley says. Yes, it is very wet. Five seconds till lights out. Give us your final predictions. It's a wet one. Race 400. Time to bring the action. We're go. And you know who didn't go? Wavy Knife didn't go. He got a drive-through. He's at the back of the field now. And everybody scatters. We have about 4 cars going 4 wide here. Look at the kerfuffle. This is treacherous. And this is in wet conditions for good measure. Wavy's lagged out. Jackson Traeger's off. We've got a car up in front riding George and SV on top of one another. And they're still not off of one another. SV and George both in the wall. But a good start from Night Owl. He leads his team principal, Blue Goggy. Teammates. Usually not teammates. Trading spots. Valkyrie, SV. Or sorry, Valkyrie and SLR Metal, excuse me. Speaking of SV, he's lost touch of Invade. 1.5 the gap. Now here comes Daniel with George. Tadpole Jack. All in the mix. 2x2. Oh, there's a bit of touching. Debut sped up. And that's put Tadpole off track. Now, did Tadpole illegally overtake, or did Daniel force him off? Now, Debut is touching with Jack. He's squeezing, pinching him, down to the hairpin. First time. Heavy braking. They're doing it in the wet. And there's touching. Further on back. Valkyrie. She says she doesn't like these cars, but she just squeezed out Eric. SLR Metal got him too. Here are your positions gained from lap 1 so far. Biggest winner, Valkyrie and Tadpole. Tadpole got one right there. And now, look at this with his teammate. Debut. Elbows out right there. Cutting the chicane with True Streamer Boy. Tadpole got boxed in and still can't get the traction. Jack Miles moving around, looking to get 2 at 1 right here. Jack Miles being squeezed. Jack Miles, there's contact. Debut into the wall. Trouble for him. Off goes True Streamer Boy. And there's more contact. That's with Valkyrie now. And Tadpole. What a messed up turn 1 there that was. True Streamer Boy just lost a place, but our biggest gainer now because of the trouble that we've saw happen right there is Valkyrie, 7 places. But Night Owl, let's talk about him leading this race. Debut weekend, he is looking great right now up front. 1.5 the gap over Blue Goggy. Papaya rules we're talking about between Valk and Eric already. Oh boy. Two team principals here. Blue Goggy, only on the F2 side now, if you saw the news earlier this week, and Invade. Used to be an F2 team principal, now is a team principal over at Ferrari on the F1 side. Battle for second place heating up. 2 seconds is the gap between the race lead and Blue Goggy. Wavy Knife, not happy about the internet there. And J&T Jackson Traeger talking about reading up early before this event. Just catching up on those messages in the chat. So some guys will be facing penalty surely, and some guys not having the day they would have wanted. Unfortunate. I feel absolutely gut-wrenched for Wavy Knife. It really is not good to see what happened to him today. Did not deserve that at all. With the wet, you're not going to see much overtaking, but no surprise in Canada, we've got wet weather here. We had some in the real life event in F1. We also had some when we raced here in RPL back in season 3, was it? One of the races we had wet conditions. I want to say it was season 3. We've had wet conditions here in RPL before a few times. Most recently in F1 cars, as far as I can remember, besides qualifying, it would be the Tier 2 event we ran here recently. So, no surprise at all that we see wet conditions here in Canada. I thought for a moment, I was reading Twitter this morning, or X as it's now called. When it first got called X, I felt like people were going to make my X jokes, you know, but no. I saw this morning on X possible rain in the area for Baku. I was surprised that didn't even happen. And I was wondering before the weekend, have we ever got rain in Baku at all? Well, we definitely know we've got rain in Canada here in RPL F1. We actually got it in F2 in the largest margin of victory back in Season 3. I believe that went to Matt GW, that race. 27 seconds, the largest margin of victory in RPL F2. Night Owl sets the pace, fastest lap for him. He leads the event. IFRC Johnny's mentioning right there in the Twitch chat. F1 and internet. Well, he corrected himself to Twitter in the Twitch chat. Don't mix like oil and water. Well, yeah, I was looking on there and I was looking at the potential of rain this morning in practice, and that didn't happen. But 2 Welsh wizards, George for Tier 3, Jack recently for Tier 1 and F2, duking it out here for 5th place on our timing charts. We're just going to see, I think, a really calm, cool, and collected race here. A spread out field in this event. We got more yellow flags. That is debut, and he's actually retired on track. Oh, no. That's against the rules, Daniel. Dang, Daniel. Luckily, that car is out of harm's way, but that's not good. That is breaking the RPL rules. Not good. I am surprised, though. Maybe it's the wet conditions that are preventing this. I mean, we're having a lot of drivers have trouble at traction, so I guess that makes up for it. But I'm surprised we've not seen any drivers pick up any track limit penalties. We had half of the drivers, what, like almost halfway? And I spoke too soon. Jackson Traeger gives up from this event. He is out. He already had trouble by rating up early. And True Streamer Boy, that was what I was talking about with the jinxes. He has got a track limit penalty. He is our first. I was very surprised it took this long in the event to see a track limit penalty be handed out. But right now, we got a trade in places. Tadpole has been eaten alive by Valkyrie. And we got a penalty. Again, second driver now. It's the second Prema. And you can see, I was just talking about making up for the penalties. You look at the driver struggling for grip here. Tadpole, the biggest one of them. I just saw right there. I saw it moments ago between our leaders, Goggy and Night Owl. I don't know if Night Owl's just set the pace recently here. Obviously, set the fastest lap. But I don't know if that was the case or as much Goggy struggling. But the gap has completely changed. It was 2.8, 2.9 moments ago. Now make it 4.3. Night Owl having a great debut weekend. And look at this. Struggling. And going off in the wall. This is not good. That did not look great from him. Tadpole's out. We've had an incident. Safety car deployed. Tadpole was in the battle with Valkyrie. Metal. Big damage to Invicta, who came into this event tied for second in Constructors, and we're going to have some pit stops, I'd have to assume, because if they think they can't make it to the end, kind of similar to the race last season in Imola, they may come and pit here. We're not seeing anybody do so, so everyone thinks they can make it to the end on their wet compound tires, but I would not be surprised if we at least saw one duck into the pits, even if they have damage or not, and Valkyrie, under the safety car, encounters a 3-second penalty. So SV actually speaks of what I was just talking about. It's going dry in 10 minutes. So that is why we are not seeing anybody end up pitting. They're going to wait till it gets dry. Hopefully no one gets a puncture by then. 3 guys in 6 laps we have lost from this event. We have Tadpole out. Debure, also known as Daniel, out. Jackson Traeger, out. Jackson Traeger, not the weekend he would have wanted. His return to F2 cars is not really gone to plan. He looks like he doesn't even enjoy driving these cars. And a Tier 2 champion out of this event. Tadpole out of this event. A Tier 1 graduate. Or sorry, a Tier 2 graduate to Tier 1. Hopefully later today in Netherlands, where it does rain quite a bit actually. To my knowledge, we do see him do better in the Ferrari. The second Prema lit into the pit. And we'll see he's going for a new pair of wet tires. He had the damage. We rode on board with him, and it looked like he was going toward the wall intentionally, trying to give up. But he actually got caught out with a safety car at the right time. This is why you don't give up, folks, because you can have good things happen. And I want to talk about some of the careers here from the guys here running 2nd to 4th. Okay, so SV, he started out his first 9 events, and this includes preseason events at the time and social races in RPL that we ran, retiring in all but 1 event. SV's found the points a few times here in the F1 cars, found his way back to the Ferrari Academy there, from the Alpine Academy previously, and it seems like, I would say, he's having a career resurgence in a way. This is exactly what we expected of him when he joined RPL. Consistent points finishes. He got his first F2 points last week in Brazil, or excuse me, in Portugal. Raced in Brazil last season, excuse me. Running well there, I believe, if I'm correct. But for SV's case, for PHM, they've not had a podium in a while. They got their first points of the season last week. He's running 4th. For RSF1 Invade, he got a podium for the first time in RPL F2 back in Season 17 Japan. Last season, he returned to the podium for the first time in 2 seasons. He's really coming alive, to say the least, in RPL. Team principal, was an F2 team principal. Good management side there. Tier 3 race winner, twice now. And for Blue Gagi, I feel like it's been up and down for this guy. It was back in Canada under a safety car in Tier 2 here, where he crashed while running in a good spot for AlphaTauri. But for Gagi, it's now the V-Carb he's racing in. Got a chance in Red Bull. First podium for him in Tier 2. In a top car. Back in Japan. Then consistent podiums, but not consistent enough. So that's why he's in the V-Car. But for Gagi, before that Red Bull stint, he had podiums. He got a fluke podium in a Haas back in Saudi Arabia. And for Blue Gagi, it was consistent F2 podiums. Season 18 was the first time that he had took a trip up to the podium. And we saw some at the start of Season 19, slipping away from victories. Then he got his first victory in Vegas, where he held off some champions and some race winners. Josh, Tadpole, Skits. So, Blue Gagi, maybe a revenge arc in a way. I mean, I know he's looking for it still in Tier 2. Had a really good showing last night in the V-Carb at Zandvoort. And we got some pit stops being made. Streamer Boy and Eric are boxing. Soft tires for them. Looks like they think it's going to dry up very soon. Eric only on the softs. True Streamer Boy on the wets. But yeah, as I was saying, Gagi's sake, seems like you've really turned it around. Maybe not too much recently, getting his academy assistant stripped, but the good thing for him is he still has chances to learn and prove himself by being an F2 TP. Being here in F2 cars, I think he strives in better. And our race leader, debut weekend, Night Owl. New member to the server. Only been here for about a week or so. Leading this race for Prema. And this is Blue Gagi's Academy. Prema have won in multiple seasons of RPL F2. A good history they have. 64 career wins. Maybe looking for a 65th. It would be a 16th different season. They're third most in that list on teams with most seasons with a win. Premise sake, it was Blue Gagi winning last season at this point. But Night Owl, debut weekend, and I want to talk about a few debut weekends just to recap people. Most notably, Josh's. Man who leads this championship coming into this event. When he was on his debut weekend last season in Spain, as Night Owl in debut weekend goes, off and away, it was the feature race that Josh ended up winning. Right now we're in the feature race, and could this be reminiscent to what Josh did last season in Spain? This difference being that Night Owl started from the pole. Back to green flag we go. SV and George, a little bit of contact, collision! SV! Big incident, penalty. And he's come out right in front of George. That was very dangerous. 10 seconds his name. Wow. And he has to let George and Jack go, and he comes right in front of George. Look at this. George slams him into the wall. Payback. Big incident. George now around. SV got another 10 second to his name for good measure. This is not good. Virtual safety car halts this race. 5 minutes until it dries, so we're looking at less time till the rain stops. But right now, SV, George, before it does end up drying up, they're gonna have to make a trip to the pit lane. And our IRL 10 minutes of F1 game, or 10 minutes. Drive through under the VSC. 26 seconds of penalties for SV. Okay. Retirement on track from the Prema. That's our second one. That was not allowed. George, drive through. Oh boy. We're gonna look at our penalties rather than our tires here until we get it dry. Oh boy. 3-car breakaway. Jack Miles almost got caught in that absolute mess that was in the restart, and I think he's just lucky to get away from that. He can reel these guys down. He's got half a race remaining. He can do it. Jack Miles can get there, especially if these guys do battle. But serving the drive-through, SV and George. Excuse me, SV serving a 10 second. It was Littleack who had a drive-through. My bad. George is serving a drive-through though. And pitting first for wet compound tires. If I was George, I would have served the drive-through first, then made a choice of tires, because I know everyone is saying it's going to dry up. Just a matter of when. And I think we're lucky that we have SV and George far enough away from each other out of the pit lane. They've had 2 collisions, 1 in the sprint race, 2 technically in the feature race. But 4 retirements so far we have from this event tonight, and as Faded Knight says in the Twitch chat, we are not done yet. Yeah. Yeah, Goatly, you make a fair point. I mean, your tier 3 race was not great, but 26 seconds of penalties is definitely a different level of chaos for sure. Like we said earlier, top 3 have broken away. Goggy has won once, and he is entering the pit lane. You cannot speed if you are any of these guys, and they have noticed that it has dried up enough for soft compound tires. Is it, though, enough here to sit here and let it be fully dry? Is anybody staying out? Wavy Knife's AI car, he's not returning to the session, he said, because of his internet issues. He stays out. But everybody really went into the pits there. Some are going to repair their damage. I would assume that they may have had. You know, this actually helps because I think of the Eric sets fast slap on soft, so he has undercut these guys. You know, this helps Jack Miles. Why does it help Jack Miles as DRS gets enabled? Well, it helps Jack Miles because he is a lot closer to our net race leader than he was prior. But the problem for Jack is he was struggling coming out of the pit lane, similar to what Lando Norris did in the real-life Grand Prix here. Eric taking full advantage there on the undercut. 3 laps earlier he pitted on those soft compound tires. May have not been the full advantage, but he is in contention for this victory. We say we have people in chat saying Valka's cooking, Eric cooking. Well, let's see what kind of meal they've got cooked up for us for this event. Is it going to be good enough for a first victory with Eric or Night Owl, or will it be a second victory for Goggy? Will it be another victory for Invade in RPL? Will it be his first in RPL F2 if that was the case? Jack Miles looking for win 24. Valkyrie hasn't won in 2-3 seasons, it seems like. It's been a long time for Valkyrie. She does not like these cars, but she would love to have a good one. Here we go for our net race lead. Eric and Night Owl trading the places. 2 guys who've never won. Wavy Knife's AI pits, and Blue Goggy has hit the penalty club. This is not good from him. He was in contention for a podium. Scrap that. He is now net P5 when this gets added up. Fada makes a good point. Can Eric get back-to-back podiums? More importantly, can he get his first career victory here in RPL? SLR Metal picks up a 3-second penalty. Add his name to the penalty club. But if Eric or Night Owl, even Invade, pick up a victory tonight, it would be the 79th different RPL F2 driver to take a victory. The only season we didn't have a new winner was back in season 14. We will be starting off season 20 quite strong here in RPL F2. And like I mentioned at the start of the hour, just keep in mind, 400th race complete after this. We had 400 races done as of the sprint race, but the difference with 400 races done and 400 races complete is that we had a sprint race before that was not counted due to the way the event was ran. We had the race ran, but nothing was awarded. So, 400th race complete. We're looking for a 400th different winner, technically. And I say 400th different winner without any context for anyone to not understand, but when you add up the amount of races won by people, Jack is 23, Luke Range is 46, Skither is 33. One of these guys are looking for their first or maybe second right now. Jack maybe 23rd, or 24th, excuse me. You add up all the amount of wins, you would get to 400, and that would be the amount of races complete. So that's what I was talking about there, but we just had some penalties handed out. George, one to his name. SV, fastest lap. Blue Goggy gives a little shove to Night Owl, telling his driver, hurry it up. We have a chance here to overtake, and here goes the overtake. Night Owl through on Eric. Remember, those two are penalty free. Blue Goggy is not. Viewers tuning in, wanting to see what happens with that being said. Down the inside, Blue Goggy goes for the dive bomb. The lunges worked out perfectly. Blue Goggy through. It's an Academy 1-2, but Blue Goggy has got to make up some ground due to that penalty. And lucky enough, he might get it with the battle brewing here. 4th place is up for grabs. Jack Miles wants it. Invade has it. Jack Miles, with the help of DRS, breezes past for our lead. Blue Goggy now takes it. Now, if he can get a 3-second gap, this will be wonderful for him. Lap 14, Blue Goggy sets the sights. Jack Miles takes over on the fastest lap train. SLR Metal. Is that a second penalty? Yes, it is. Off. Eric. Penalty. You know who this plays into? Blue Goggy's hands. Jack Miles looking to get a move on. Eric is really struggling. We know the penalties already happened, but he is really struggling for grip right here. Jack Miles there to pounce. Invade is as well. And this may be a podium for both of them if they can just get the overtake done. And here we go, side by side. Will it work out? A little bit of leaning on each other. And Invade does get the move done. Jack Miles gets the move done. Invade's not clear yet, but he will be come the hairpin, I think. And he should be. Yes, he is. We see Invade usually pick up a lot of penalties, but right now he is actually in prime position here. If he could just get the gap down on Goggy to take a 3rd RPL F2 podium. And speaking of Blue Goggy, he's being overtaken for the race lead. Night Owl back out in front. Could Jack Miles be the only driver this weekend in both the sprint race and the feature race to go penalty free? Everybody in the sprint race picked up a penalty, and you know who was not in that sprint race? Meaning we have 15 drivers compared to 14? Valkyrie. Valkyrie picks up a penalty already earlier on, meaning Jack Miles could still become the only one to not have a penalty in both events. If he were to do it, I would not be surprised. It would be a Jack Miles thing to go penalty-free in a race, and he's looking to do so again, but we've still got 5-6 laps to settle this event. And we've still got some overtakes to be done, too. No one's comfortable. Safety car out. No one is comfortable. That was completely right. George Alp Williams, the cause of it. He is missing a front wing and he was about to be lapped. SV claiming that might be on purpose, but SV, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not going to trust your word after what I've seen so far from you in this race, and I'm not going to trust George's word either from what I've seen from your incidents with him. So, we'll look if anybody pits. I doubt they will. There's really no point to give up the track position. But if you don't have a penalty in your Jack Miles, why not go for the gamble? Eric is in as well. I would assume these guys are going to super softs here because they can make the rest of this event. Valkyrie is in. This is a good chance for her to get a first podium in quite a bit of ways. True Streamer Boy, he picked up a penalty under the safety car and he's actually trying to slow down, avoiding a drive-through there, I could tell. I was correct. Super soft tires from Jack Miles. Same with Eric, same with Valkyrie, and I'd expect the same from Metal and SV who come into the pits and box. But if you're Invader Night Owl, you have the track position. You have cars in between you and Jack Miles. You're going to hope this race resumes with 2 laps remaining and hope that there is chaos that ensues to either get you a podium or a victory. Remember, Wavy Knife's AI is still on wet compound tires. Metal and SV will be behind that unless the AI pits. SV says, definitely on purpose. We locked wheels. I went left and we locked wheels. LOL. Invade may be regretting the decision, saying he should have boxed. I don't know. We only have, what? We're probably going to get a restart with either 2 to go here. So, I don't know. We'll find out. If Goggy does challenge his Academy teammate here, this will be an interesting thing for Invade to capitalize on. Because I guarantee you right now, that will be the biggest guy eager to do so if he sees side-by-side, wheel-to-wheel battling up in front of him. And True Streamer Boy, big shout out to this guy. He was in the RPL server for a while. He didn't race till Vegas last season. And I remember covering that Vegas race. It was my last race in F2 for a while, until a little break. And he was just spinning out that race. I believe it was Wrecked by Storm his name was then, if I'm correct. But yeah, just True Streamer Boy. Back then, it was not his day. I'm looking at results here. Yeah, this is not good. Yeah, so he needs a good race, to say the least. He has not been in the top 10 in a single... I've been put in game chat. He has not been put in the top 10... He's not finished in the top 10, excuse me, in a single RPL F2 race. And in Tier 3, when I've noticed his name, if I'm being honest with you guys, I've noticed him being completely off the pace. I want to look at his results just to make sure I'm not lying here. A DNF in Qatar. 14th in Australia. 14th in Abu Dhabi. Safety car, not in yet, by the way. Yeah, so I was correct. Throughout all tiers, True Streamer Boy, yeah. So, you're oh, different guy. But still, True Streamer Boy, the same applies, though. He's only been here for a little bit, and he's not had a single top 10 finish in RPL. I know he has got a penalty to his name, but look at who else does with 6 seconds. Metal, SV. George is trying to catch up to the back of this pack, if I'm correct. No, George is already caught up. George is a lap down, excuse me. So, he'll finish in the top 10, assuming he finishes this race. And if that's the case for True Streamer Boy, best career finish. But I have to give a lot of props for him because he was running the points in the sprint race, and he did not get the finish he would have wanted. In fact, for Streamer Boy, he's looking to better that. And he should better that with this tonight. SV under the safety car has picked up a time penalty. And we've got a mess here. Wavy Knife's AI is causing issues. 3 stops for George, 2 stops for most of this field, 1 stop for the other half. But we're going to put you on the tires here before we get to the penalties that we encountered. We will get a restart with 2 laps to go. Just a reminder to those 7 of you guys watching, later on tonight, we raced in Zandvoort in RPL F1 to end off the weekend. Then next week, we race in Austria for Tier 3, Spain in Tier 2, and we're back at Miami, Florida, the Hard Rock Stadium, where we hope to see no one speeding. Well, you can speed on a live racetrack, just not in the pit lane. We still hope to see no one speeding at the Hard Rock Stadium next weekend in RPL F2. That will be where we're at next week. Almost a spin under the safety car from True Streamer Boy warming up his tires. That would not be good. We're talking about a good chance of a best career finish. But right now, with 2 laps remaining, 2 lap shootout, Night Owl leads this. Blue Goggy is second. Invade third. Back to green we go. We're going now. And Night Owl out in front, leading the event, looking for a first win on the debut weekend. But also looking to keep it penalty free. Let's keep in mind, how many penalties or warnings does he have? He is on the brink of a track limit penalty. And if that's the case, it could go RSF1 Invade's way. And RSF1 Invade is struggling. But what RSF1 Invade needs is True Streamer Boy to hold up Jack. And it looks like Jack is struggling to get by. But now he's moving down the inside, side by side here. A little bit of touching, but Jack Miles makes the most of it. He's up to net P3 now, Jack. Was it the right choice to stay out, Invade? He regretted the decision as soon as the safety car passed the pits once. Eric has got True Streamer Boy. True Streamer Boy is now extremely vulnerable. Here comes Metal and Valkyrie. True Streamer Boy in the wall. He's picked up damage and had an incident, and that may be a chance for points gone if that damage gets worse. Here comes Jack Miles on the back of RS1 Invade. 2 F1 team principals, 1 at McLaren, 1 at Ferrari. Jack Miles makes the most of Invade. But if Jack Miles battles Blue Goggy and Night Owl, can Invade still take advantage? That will be the question. Jack Miles restarted back in 5th place and was 3 seconds away from the lead before the safety car came out that George caused, and Blue Goggy picks up yet another track limit penalty. But the question is from Jack Miles, he's got a lot of pace, fresh tires. Can he get there in time? 1 lap to go. Invade being challenged by Eric, who just barges his way through, elbows out. SV and True Streamer Boy, collision. SV wicked contact with True Streamer Boy causes him to go spinning and looping around. But Jack Miles is closing in. Look at the gap between our leader and Jack. 5 tenths. He's got a car in between him and Night Owl. That's the team principal of the Prema. That's Blue Goggy. Blue Goggy had a mishap. Jack Miles down the inside. The gap is coming down. 4 tenths now. How does Blue Goggy play a factor? They both break late. Blue Goggy almost goes off and squeezes Jack onto the curb. A little bit of touching won't hurt, but it will hurt Jack Miles' chance to go for the victory. Jack, contact with Goggy, kind of forces him out. But Jack has really a DRS straight and 2 more corners to try and hunt down Night Owl on his debut weekend. He is making a statement, Night Owl. He started from pole position, already started off with a bang, but now he's got 2 more corners to avoid a penalty, and he's sliding and almost hitting the barrier, but he has held on beautifully. Welcome to RPL. Welcome to the Winners Club. Night Owl wins on his debut weekend. Prema win in Canada once again. Our 79th different driver to be victorious in F2. Jack Miles just missed out, and RSF1 Invade has joined Jack Miles up in the podium once again. He was P3. Although he stayed out, the strategy wasn't so bad after all. We'll give you a rundown on the results in just a moment, but Prema win once again. It is the 65th different victory for them, and it's yet another season for them on the top step of the RPL F2 podium. One of the most successful teams here do it again, and look at that. The Australian driver has won his first race on his debut weekend. The Prema man has a reason to give us a thumbs up. Celebrating that one for sure. He will live with that one for a while. He will also live with having his debut weekend be the weekend he scored the most points of anybody. Welcome to the Winners Club, Night Owl. I can't tell if that's Australia or New Zealand. I'm going to look up the flag quickly. That is Australia. It is past midnight for them in Australia right now. I bet you right now, this man is screaming up and down his lungs, or at least celebrating with some sort of shouting, saying, yes, I did it. I made a statement. I belong here. And you do belong here, Night Owl. Taking your first win. Fastest lap, a good measure, too. A 10th the gap between Night Owl and Jack. It was the right call from him to stay out. The track position mattered in the end. Jack Miles kept it without a penalty in both races. It paid off for him. 10th to 2nd. And you know what? Either Jack or Night Owl will be my driver of the day from this event. We had 4 drivers we lost. True Streamer Boy finished in the points. That's his first points finish in RPL. It's been a struggle for him. I noticed in the Sauber, off of his teammates' pace. Not there. F2. Not there in the points at all. He threw that away in the sprint race, but in the feature race, he at least has something to celebrate. Those were your final results, folks, from the feature race. We're going to go over it one more time. Night Owl, though. First career win. Prema, I think they've held the last 2 first career wins, if I'm correct, with Blugagi and Night Owl. So speaking of Blugagi, those 6 seconds, he did have some track position to hold on. He ended up finishing 4th. Valkyrie was 5th. Very good showing from her, actually. You know what? For someone who hates these cars, I have to give her a lot of credit because Canada is a tough track. It's tough on the track limits. She was really not good on the track limits, but still held on for, it was 6th, excuse me. Gagi was 5th. It was Eric who was 4th I was missing from. I was reading it from 2nd to 15th, thinking it was 1st to 14th. My bad. But Eric finished 4th right there in the Campos. Wavy was the last points runner, but with him disconnecting from the session, not being back in it, I think George could potentially get himself and High Tech their first points of the season. SV was 9th. True Streamer Boy was 8th, and Metal, he joined in late, and he's had this happen a few times at the start of last season, most notably, and it prevented him from winning the title, but he finished 7th. Not a terrible showing, but not a usual SLR Metal showing, to say the least. Driver of the day from that one, I gave the sprint to Jack. The feature, I really could give it to Jack, but I'm going to give it to Night Owl. Just because this is a statement. Your first weekend joining RPL, your first weekend racing in RPL, you make a statement. Australian driver, you're racing with it being anywhere from, depending on time zone, 12 to 4 in the morning right now, and you end up staying up for this race, committing to this league, racing it out. You have to be given the credit when credit is due, and credit was due today on his first weekend, first career win for the man from Australia. Very big showing, very big statement there from Night Owl. Well, we see why he's named Night Owl now. Our 79th different winner. So, congrats to him. We lost 4 from that event in the feature race, but Night Owl became our 56th different pole sitter. He also became our 79th different winner. What a weekend it was for RPL F2. Jack Miles, I can't go without mentioning it. Double podium, and also congrats to him, keeping it penalty-free in both races. We'll find out if he can keep doing that later on today. F1 in Zandvoort. That's where we'll end off the weekend later on tonight with RPL Titan Iron on commentary. I'm your commentator, Ryan Searles. We will see you for F1 in Zandvoort later tonight. If you don't join us for that event, make sure you join us next week in RPL F2 for Miami. We're in Florida at the Hard Rock Stadium. The Miami Dolphins played there recently. Hopefully we'll see who ends up playing well there at our event next week in RPL F2, excuse me. But F1, RPL F1. Later on tonight in Zandvoort. We'll catch you then. I'm your commentator, Ryan Searles. Have a good one. We will see you then.